Advanced English Vocabulary Masterclass, you'll learn 109 advanced C1-C2 words to sound fluent in English. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. First, let's talk about preferences. This is when you must choose between two or more options. For example, do you prefer to study in the morning or at night? You have to express your preference. To start your answer, you can say, I'd say. This is I would say. I'd say I generally prefer. So that's your start to the answer, and then you state your preference. I'd say I generally prefer studying in the morning. You can add on over at night, so you're using both of the options and stating your preference. An alternative, I tend to study in the morning more than at night. So here you're saying what your routine is, because when you tend to do something, it means you do it most of the time. Or you can use most of the time as an alternative. Most of the time I study at night. Or you can say I'm most alert in the morning, so that's when I study. Notice here, you're providing the reason first, and then you're stating what your preference is. Or you can also contrast your current state to a past and use I used to. I used to, and then your base verb. I used to prefer evenings, but my work schedule has changed, so now I study in the mornings. Now, of course, this is just the beginning to your answer. You have to go on and then give more information about your preference. Now let's talk about opinions. So of course, when you're sharing what you think, if you agree or disagree, or your general view. So the question might be, do you think children should learn to cook at school? So you have to share your opinion. Of course, you can say, in my opinion, in my opinion. This is the start. And I recommend in spoken English, you take a small pause because that reflects the comma. In my opinion, children shouldn't learn to cook at school. And of course, you need to go on and explain your opinion. But now you know how to instantly start your answer. You can say, it depends on the situation, but I'd say children should learn to cook at school. Notice what I did here. I stated my preference, but I started with, it depends on the situation. So I'm letting the person know that I'm open to considering other views, or I'm open to considering a specific situation where the opposite is true. And you've already learned, but I'd say, I would say. In spoken English, I'd say, but I'd say children should learn to cook at school. You can say, to be honest. This is a great way to start, and especially since it gives you a second to think about what you're going to say next. To be honest, again, a short pause. To be honest, I'm completely opposed to teaching children how to cook at school. So you can use to be honest when you're about to share something very directly, or perhaps it's not the opinion that most people have. Instead of to be honest, you can use honestly. They're the same. You can use them interchangeably. Honestly, I completely support teaching children how to cook at school. A great starter that natives use in both professional and casual situations is, as far as I'm concerned. This is longer, so make sure you get all those words. As far as, I'm, the verb to be conjugated. As far as I'm concerned, with a soft D at the end. As far as I'm concerned, this is an alternative to in my opinion or I think. As far as I'm concerned, children should focus on the most important academic subjects at school. Let's move on to past experiences. So this is when you're describing a time or talking about memories. So someone may ask you, describe a time when you traveled somewhere new. That's definitely an IELTS style question. In a job interview, it could absolutely be describe a time when you handled a difficult situation. So think about how you can adapt these in your day-to-day life so you can use them more than just on a language exam or just in a job interview. Now, the key here is that the situation is in the past. So you can say, I remember. Remember is in the present simple. I remember back in 2019. So you can say, I remember in 2019, but if you say back in 2019, using back in emphasizes that you think this was a long time ago. I remember back in 2019 when I took my first trip abroad. Of course, remember, this is how you start your sentence, how you start your answer. You still then need to provide the details of your answer. Or you can say, one time that really stands out. This is definitely the way a native would answer. One time, so one time represents the time you traveled abroad or the time you handled a difficult situation. One time that really stands out. If it stands out, it means that it's what you remember, it's what seems the most important or the most obvious. One time that really stands out is when, and then you provide your answer. When I visited the United States for the first time. You can say the first trip that comes to mind. That comes to mind. The first trip that comes to mind is, and then you have to state that trip. My weekend camping trip with my family last month. You can say the last time I traveled somewhere new. So you're using the language from the question in your answer. The last time I handled a difficult situation was, and then a time reference, was 3 years ago. And then you go on and you state the activity. I attended my friend's wedding in Greece. Again, that's not the complete answer. You would go on and answer the full question. Here's a great one. I can clearly recall. Recall is another way of saying remember, and clearly that's your adverb. Adverbs are optional in a sentence, so when you use them, they're very impactful. It means you have a very clear image. I can clearly recall the moment when. Now, if you use this, you're setting the tone that something really memorable or amazing happened. So make sure you provide something memorable or amazing, but of course that's subjective. I can clearly recall the moment when I saw the Eiffel Tower for the first time. And then you can go on and describe that experience. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Now let's talk about hypotheticals. This is when you talk about imaginary situations, often including the words if, could. For example, if you could live in any city, where would you choose? So to answer this, use that same structure. If I could live in any city, I would live in San Francisco. So you're using the same structure from the question. This is the clearest way to answer. And then of course, go on and provide your reason why. There are alternative things you can say. If I had the chance, I would definitely live in Vancouver. So if I had the chance. if this situation were available. Now you can just use I would. I would likely choose Tokyo. You can use choose instead of live in. Or likely means 50, 60%, you can make that stronger. I would definitely choose Tokyo. That means 80, 90, 95%. You can start your answer with your choice. Name the city. Seattle is a vibrant city, so I would live there if I had the chance. Notice you're just reversing the structure. So I would live there if I had the chance, if I could. You can provide the reason. Due to its proximity to my family, I would live in Seoul. This is an advanced structure because you're saying due to its proximity, but at this point you haven't defined what it is. So it creates curiosity because the person has to wait until you reveal the answer. I would live in Seoul. Let's move on to balanced answers. These are used when you want to discuss both sides instead of choosing one. For example, do you think young people prefer cities or rural areas? And you don't want to choose one. You want to provide a balanced answer. You can start by saying, well, it really depends on the person. You don't have to use well. This is more of an introduction. It doesn't provide meaning, but natives commonly use it. Well, and it shows you're reflecting on the question and you're gathering your thoughts, you're forming an opinion. It's a natural thing to do. Well, it really depends on the person. It depends on the situation. It depends on, you can provide a different noun here and then go on and discuss both sides. Or you can start with some people prefer lively cities, while others prefer quiet rural areas. So you're providing adjectives to go with both to give you something to discuss more. You can say there are good arguments on both sides. This lets the person know that you could argue positively for one and the other. And then you can go on and share those arguments. There are good arguments. Good is an adjective. You can choose a different one. There are great arguments on both sides. Alternatively, you can say there are pros and cons to both. So that means there are positives and negatives. And you can add on to the last one as well. It depends on the person. It depends on the person. And then you can discuss the person who would prefer cities and the person who would prefer rural areas. You can state that's difficult to answer. That's difficult to answer because it comes down to personal preference. It comes down to means you must consider. There's this important reason or explanation. It comes down to personal preference. Now let's review example requests. This is when you're asked to provide an example, a very common thing on your IELTS and in job interviews and in daily conversations. Can you give an example of when you worked collaboratively? So this could be for your IELTS, of course for a job interview as well. And now, the question, if the question starts with can you, acknowledge that part and say certainly, certainly. That's acknowledging the can you. It's like saying yes, I can. Certainly, for example. Certainly, for example, and then you state the situation. Last month, I was part of a project, and then you go on and describe your role and how it was collaborative. Instead of certainly, you can say absolutely. The first example that comes to mind. This means the first example I thought of, but a more advanced way is the first example that comes to mind is, and then What came to your mind? What did you think of when I joined a soccer team? Because sports is very collaborative. Or again, to acknowledge the request, can you? You can reply with I'd love to, I would, I'd love to. A great example of working collaboratively is when I was asked to organize a conference. So you're saying a great example. Or again, to say yes, definitely. The best example of working collaboratively is a project I'm on now. So your answer doesn't necessarily have to be in the past. Now, the most casual way is just to simply say, sure. One example I can share is. That's the most casual. Natives will absolutely use that. Sure. One example I can share is when I volunteered at my daughter's school. Of course, there are going to be times when you're unsure, when you don't know much about the topic, but you still need to answer. So if someone asks you, when do you think space travel will become accessible to the average person? Now they're asking you when. They expect a specific time. Be honest. Say, honestly, I don't know. But don't stop there. That's not enough to impress anyone. In a more formal situation, even when you're talking with your friends, that is a conversation killer. You need to provide more information, but you can absolutely acknowledge, honestly, I don't know. Adding honestly sounds more confident than simply saying, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, but I imagine it will happen this century. So instead of providing a specific answer, you can provide a more vague or general answer. This century, that's a very long timeline, right? But you answered the question. And what happens next is important. Provide your reason why you think it will happen this century. Then you've answered this very professionally. You can say, I'm not entirely sure. Adding entirely softens it. I'm not entirely sure, but I suppose. Suppose is another way of saying think, but I suppose it could happen in the next 20 years. So again, you're providing a more general time reference rather than a specific answer. You can say, I can't say for certain, but I think my grandkids will experience this. So depending what your age is, the person you're talking to will estimate the age of your grandkids, present or future, and then understand the time reference. So that's a great strategy. Or you can say, well, I haven't thought about that before. It may happen by, and then provide a time. But well, I haven't thought about that before. This is a great way to start your answer immediately and give you time to think. And then you don't have to be precise. You can be more general. It may happen by 2035 or whatever year you feel confident providing, and then provide the reason why. Remember, we talked about saying that's a difficult question. This is the perfect time to say it. That's a difficult question. If I had to guess, I would say, so you can use I'd say or I would say in the next 100 years. So here again, you're being quite vague. You're saying any time between now and 100 years from now, in the next 100 years. If I had to guess, that makes it sound like you don't have the option. It's a requirement. If I had to guess, because you're asking me and you expect to answer, I would say in the next 100 years. Amazing job. Now let's move on and you'll learn 20 advanced words for everyday life. Our first word, quandary. Listen to that pronunciation. Quandary, quandary. This is a difficult situation or dilemma. For example, I'm in a quandary about whether to take the new job or stay where I am. So that's the difficult situation, the dilemma, the quandary. Now, quandary is a noun, so you still need the rest of the sentence structure. To be in a quandary is one option. You could also say Sarah found herself in a quandary. So to find oneself in a, because it's a noun, a quandary, when both her friends asked her to help at the same time. Which friend do I help? That's the dilemma.
Yes, this is a quandary.
The manager's quandary was whether to invest in new equipment or hire more staff. Or maybe you might say, I was in a quandary in the past simple. I was in a quandary about how to improve my English until I found JForrest English. Hopefully you're saying that. So put that's right, put that's right in the comments. And don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Let's review ruckus. Notice that pronunciation? Ruckus. The N sound is unstressed. Ruckus. Ruckus. This is a noisy commotion or disturbance. The kids caused quite a ruckus. So again, you need a verb, to cause a ruckus, and then quite a ruckus intensifies it. The kids caused quite a ruckus when they found out the pool was closed. So they started screaming, yelling, making noise, a ruckus.
This is quite a ruckus.
Or there was a ruckus, to be a ruckus. There was a ruckus in the hallway after someone pulled the fire alarm. You can imagine all the noise, all the commotion, a ruckus. Or you can say to your kids, your friends, your coworkers, stop making such a ruckus. People are trying to work here. Let's review whim. Whim. This is one I use a lot. It's a sudden and impulsive decision. Let's review that sentence structure. On a whim. On a whim. We decided to drive to the beach for the day.
I buy you flowers on a whim.
So we didn't plan it. It was impulsive. She bought the dress on a whim. She didn't really think about how much it was or when she would wear it. She just bought it on a whim, even though she didn't really need it. His sudden trip to Europe was just another one of his whims. Now, whim is a noun. One of his, you need a plural. One of his whims. Let's review glitch. Glitch. Do you know this one? It's a minor error or malfunction. You've probably experienced this maybe today. There's a glitch. There is a glitch, a minor error or malfunction in the software that's causing the program to crash.
Yeah, there's a glitch.
Or everything was running smoothly until we hit a minor glitch in the system. So if you hit a glitch, it means you encounter it and it's sudden and unexpected. Or you might say the flight was delayed due to a technical glitch. So a glitch and then technical is the adjective. What type of glitch? An error related to technology, a technical glitch with the plane. Let's review stroll, another one that's part of my daily speech, but it's more advanced, of simply saying a leisurely walk. Stroll is the word choice. We took a nice stroll. So notice you can take a stroll and then nice describes what type of stroll. We took a nice stroll through the park after dinner. Or she likes to go for a stroll. You can go for a stroll around the neighborhood to clear her mind.
Let's go for a stroll.
Or review this one. She likes to stroll around the neighborhood to clear her mind. What's the difference? Well, in this sentence, she likes to stroll. Stroll is a verb and it's in the infinitive. So you can use it as a noun or a verb. Now, speaking of verbs, let's move on to scrutinize. Scrutinize. Native speakers will often drop that T and form a flap T and it will sound like scrutinize. So you may hear that, scrutinize, or more enunciated, scrutinize. This means to examine something closely and carefully. The accountant scrutinized the financial reports for any errors. So it sounds stronger than simply saying reviewed. Or someone might say to you, you need to scrutinize the contract carefully before signing it. Again, stronger than saying review, and it instantly sounds more advanced. In the negative, you might say, my boss scrutinizes my every move. My every move means everything I do.
What are we supposed to do? Scrutinize every little thing?
And notice this is in the present simple. My boss scrutinizes. So it shows that it's a routine action. Let's move on to dwindle. Dwindle. This means to gradually decrease or diminish. It sounds more advanced. The crowd began to dwindle as the concert came to an end. Or her savings dwindled after she lost her job. So they started going down and they kept going down gradually. Or you can say interest in the project is dwindling. Notice this is in the present continuous. This is a verb, so you need to conjugate it. And our subject is interest. Interest is dwindling.
An interest in the tour has dwindled nearly to nothing.
Let's review nudge. This is a great verb. It means to physically push or encourage someone or something, but you do it gently. And that's why I just went like this, because that would be a nudge. She nudged him to remind him it was his turn to speak.
Let's nudge some people.
So if someone is sitting beside me and I go like this, that would be me nudging the person. And it's for a specific purpose. It acts as a reminder. Or remember, you can use this with something. He nudged the door open just enough to peek inside. Whenever I'm in public, I don't open doors with my hands because of germs. I try to nudge the door with this part of my body. Now remember, you can use this to mean encourage. I needed someone to nudge me into making the decision I'd been avoiding. So to encourage me. So it can be physical or just words of encouragement. Let's review scoff. Scoff. This means to mock or show contempt. For example, he scoffed at the idea of working overtime on the weekend. So he showed contempt, that he wasn't happy for it. So you can scoff at something, at the idea. Now you can certainly say this word in your speech to explain how someone reacted. I shared my idea and he scoffed at me, or he scoffed at it, the idea. But this is often just a sound effect that someone makes in reaction to something. So if I say to my students, I'm quitting YouTube, you might say, ugh, and make a sound effect. Rather than just using the word scoff, you can show it by making a sound effect or a reaction. Ugh. I'm sure the same concept exists in your native language as well. Let's review some more examples where you would say it verbally. My father scoffed when I shared my idea to start my own business. So that is how he reacted. Or she scoffed when I told her I was thinking about running a marathon. It shows how she reacted in a negative way. Let's review dodge. This means to avoid something. Now it can be physical. You can physically move your body to avoid a ball hitting you, but it can be figurative as well. For example, he managed to dodge the question by changing the subject. So it's not that he moved his body to avoid the question. He avoided it, he dodged it by changing the subject. It's a good strategy. Or physically, she quickly dodged out of the way to avoid being hit by the ball.
Dodge this.
Or someone might say to you, you can't keep dodging responsibility. So here it's in the ing form because of keep. You can't keep dodging responsibility, avoiding. You need to address the problem. Let's review some advanced adverbs. Implicitly. Implicitly. This is in a way that is understood without being directly stated. For example, I implicitly trust her to make the right decision. I trust her even though there isn't some formal agreement of trust. It's just implicit.
Officers, I trust him implicitly.
The instructions implicitly suggested. So remember, as an adverb is going to modify a verb, in this case, suggested, but without directly saying. The instructions implicitly suggested that we should wait for further notice. Or by signing the contract, you implicitly agree to the terms and conditions. Let's review zealously. Zealously. This means with great passion or enthusiasm.
Zealously represent your client?
She zealously promoted the new product to every customer who walked in. Again, the verb that's being modified is promoted. He worked zealously to finish the project ahead of schedule. Or the volunteers zealously organized the charity event, ensuring every detail was perfect. So this is a great adverb to show your passion and enthusiasm. Let's review lavishly. Lavishly. This means in an extravagant or excessive manner. They decorated the venue lavishly. So how did they decorate the venue? There's your adverb. Lavishly for the wedding. The company spent lavishly on its annual holiday party.
Oh, quite the lavish employers, aren't you?
She praised her team lavishly for their hard work and dedication. So this can be positive or negative depending on the context. Let's review briskly. This is a more advanced way of saying in a quick and energetic manner. She walked briskly to catch the bus before it left.
Because I walked here very briskly.
Or the server briskly cleared the table to make room for new customers. He spoke briskly, wanting to finish the meeting as quickly as possible. Adding adverbs will really make a sentence sound more advanced since they are optional in the sentence. Let's review solemnly because you may know this from movies. You will hear this a lot in movies or books. Solemnly. It means in a serious and formal manner. He solemnly promised to keep the secret. So if I read that in a book, I would understand more about the character. It shares a lot of information because I know he's promising in a formal or a serious way.
Solemnly promise I'll behave myself.
Or for example, the team stood solemnly during the national anthem. She solemnly handed over the resignation letter. So she did it in a very serious or formal way. Let's move on to some adjectives. Convoluted. Convoluted. This means complicated and difficult to understand. The instructions for assembling the furniture were so convoluted that I gave up. It sounds more advanced than complicated. His explanation of the situation was convoluted and hard to follow.
It was very convoluted.
Or you might complain and say the plot of the movie was too convoluted. Let's review Jittery. Jittery. Do you know this one? If you're jittery, it means that you're nervous or unable to relax. The students were jittery as they waited for their exam results. Have you been in that situation? You're waiting for a phone call or you're waiting for news or information and you're jittery. Or you might say, I always get jittery. Get jittery, become jittery. I always get jittery before a big presentation. I still do too.
Yep, just a little jittery.
Now, this is also used to describe a common side effect of too much caffeine. So you might say he drank too much coffee and started to feel jittery. In this case, your hands might actually shake or you might feel your heart beating, which is a side effect of caffeine that some people experience, including me. That's why I drink 1 cup per day or else I get jittery. Let's review quirky. Notice that pronunciation, quirky. Quirky. This means unusual, but in an interesting or charming way. I instantly think of the character Phoebe from the TV show Friends. She's unusual, but in a lovable way, right? Or you might say she has a quirky sense of humor that always makes me laugh. That could be Phoebe. Or the cafe has a quirky decor. So here it's describing decor with mismatched chairs and colorful walls. So it's unusual to have mismatched chairs, but you like it. So you can describe it as quirky to show something unusual in a positive way. Or his quirky personality, so this describes personality, his quirky personality makes him stand out in a crowd.
Well, he's quirky.
Let's review finicky. This is a negative adjective. It describes someone who is picky or difficult to please. So you might say he's so finicky about his food that he won't eat anything with onions or with many different ingredients. Now, you can also use this to describe a tool or an object. The printer is finicky about jams if you don't load the paper just right. So it's saying the printer won't behave properly unless everything is perfect.
Careful with that card, it is a little bit finicky.
Or you might say she's a finicky dresser, which relates to clothing, of course. She's a finicky dresser and spends hours choosing the perfect outfit because she's very picky, but it sounds negative. It's not a positive adjective. Same with bland. This is a negative adjective, bland. This means lacking strong flavor or excitement. Commonly used to describe food. The soup is bland. It needs salt, herbs, and spices. That will give it flavor and excitement, right?
I know, it's bland.
Or this slide is a little bland. If you're creating a presentation or reviewing a presentation, this slide is a little bland. An image or some color would add interest. Or you can describe an entire room. The room was painted a bland shade of gray. So in this case, bland describes the color. A shade of gray that is dull and boring. I think gray is pretty much bland to begin with. I don't know if there's an exciting shade of gray, but in this case, a bland shade of gray. Great job. Now you won't sound advanced if you're using common words incorrectly. So let's review 21 confusing words that I commonly see mistakes with from my advanced students. First, let's talk about all the and the whole. I hear a lot of mistakes with this pair. Jennifer, I promised to watch video. Which one do you need? Jennifer, I promised to watch the whole video, and hopefully you'll make that promise.
Did you watch the whole game?
We use the whole with singular countable nouns like video. But let's review this sentence. Jennifer, I've watched all the videos you've made. We use all the plus plural. What about this sentence? Jennifer, thank you for guidance, help, and support. Which one do you need? Jennifer, thank you for all the guidance, help, and support. Is that what you said? We also use all the with uncountable nouns. Guidance, help, and support are uncountable. Now, all the and the whole, they're determiner phrases and they're used to refer to the entirety of something. But don't say all the book was boring. Say the whole book was boring, the entire book. I ate the whole cookies. Well, we have a plural. I ate all the cookies. Or I ate the whole cookie if you want to stick with a singular cookie. And don't say I studied all the day. This is a common mistake I hear. Say I studied the whole day, night, or weekend. Let's see how you do with this quiz. Students who watch lesson will be rewarded with a free lesson PDF. Which one do you need? Did you say all the students because it's plural and countable? The whole lesson, singular and countable. Now let's review recur and reoccur. This is one that confuses natives. My Netflix bill every month. Did you say recurs? And did you get that S? Because they're both verbs, so you need to conjugate it with my Netflix bill, which is it. It recurs every month.
A recurring dream.
Recur is a verb. It means to happen again, repeatedly or periodically. So you can think of it as a pattern. Every month you get that bill. It's a pattern. Now you could also say, let's hope this bug doesn't reoccur. Reoccur is also a verb. Now it means to happen again, but not as a pattern, just to happen again. You might say, I have this recurring pain in my shoulder whenever I play tennis. Now, the pain happens again and again, like a pattern. It doesn't just happen again, it happens as a pattern. So don't say my migraines reoccur every week. As soon as you say every week, it sounds like a pattern. So say my migraines recur every week. But you can absolutely say the power outage reoccurred after the storm. This simply means it happened again, but it's not going to keep happening like a pattern, hopefully. Or someone might say to you, if the error reoccurs, happens again, call tech support. So this just means if it happens again. Let's try this quiz. Small glitches may after the update, but true bugs will often until the patch is released. The first one sounds like it might happen again, but not as a pattern, so may reoccur. But the second one sounds like it will be a pattern. So bugs will often recur, happen again and again and again. Now let's review such as and as such. Here's the quiz. Some fruits, oranges and apples, are high in vitamin C. Ooh, did you get this one? Such as oranges and apples.
Such as ourselves.
Such as is used to introduce examples. Oranges and apples, that was the example. As such is an adverbial phrase, and it means in that capacity or because of that. I'm a teacher, and as such, as a teacher, in that capacity as a teacher, I spend most days preparing lessons for my students. Or you can say the device is experimental. As such, because the device is experimental, as such, it comes with warnings. Now, keep in mind that in both of these sentences, as such can be removed entirely and the sentence is still grammatical. Let's review this sentence. Some cities, such as New York, are easier to get around without a car. Or you can put such as at the very end. Some cities are easier to get around without a car, such as New York. So the meaning between these two is distinct. They're not the same at all, but they look similar, so it's easy to confuse the word order. Let's review the quiz. Certain careers, law and medicine, require years of study and they are not easy to enter. Well, law and medicine were examples, such as law and medicine, and then we're talking about a result because of. As such, they're not easier to enter. So both of these can make your sentence sound more advanced, but make sure you don't confuse that order. Now let's review wash up and freshen up. Here's the quiz. You were just playing in the dirt. Please, before dinner. Oh, which one? Please wash up before dinner.
Go wash up.
Wash up is a phrasal verb and it means to wash your hands. So if you say you were playing in the dirt, it sounds like your hands will be dirty and you want clean hands before you eat. Now, wash up can also be used to clean your face, but really, I think it's more commonly used to mean clean your hands. Wash your hands. Freshen up, on the other hand, is also a phrasal verb, but it's more inclusive. It means to quickly tidy or groom oneself to feel refreshed. So I might say to my husband, I'm almost ready for our romantic date. Just give me 5 minutes to freshen up. So before we leave the house, I'm going to fix my hair, I'm going to redo my lipstick, I'm going to make sure I don't have anything in my teeth. Those are all part of the activities I do when I freshen up. Now, I may wash my hands when I freshen up. It just depends if my hands feel dirty or not. Wash up is most commonly used before meals. I just need to wash up before dinner. And this means wash your hands. Just make sure you do not say, I just need to wash up my hands. Don't add my hands. I just need to wash up, or I just need to wash my hands. That's the verb wash. So in this sentence, you wash something, but with wash up, you don't add the object. Now let's try this quiz. I understand you needed to, but why are you? It's just your parents coming over for dinner. Now grammatically, these are interchangeable, but I tried to give you a sentence where the context, the meaning only fits one. So I understand you needed to wash up, wash your hands. But why are you freshening up? Why are you redoing your hair, redoing your lipstick? It's just your parents. Your parents don't care if you're wearing lipstick or not. And of course, if you're a guy, you have other ways of freshening up. You probably put on cologne. Maybe you comb your beard or trim your beard. I don't know what guys do. Just think of whatever you do to freshen up. Now let's review maybe and maybe. Ooh, does this confuse you? They are not the same. Here's the question. A good idea to call first and check availability. It may be. 2 words.
I may be right. I may be wrong.
Maybe as 1 word is an adverb. It's the same as perhaps. May be as 2 words is the modal verb may and the base verb be. And may be is also used for possibility. But you can't say he may be at home. You must say maybe he's at home or he's at home maybe. Or you can say he may be at home. But you cannot say maybe he is at home. You can tell by the sentence structure. we have a subject and then a verb. So subject plus modal verb may, and then you can add on the base verb be. Now, I was saying may be and adding that space just to help you identify that as two words, but there is no pronunciation difference in spoken English. So in spoken English, maybe sound exactly the same. Let's try this quiz. It's a good idea to check the schedule because delayed. You can tell from the word order. As soon as you see because he, you know you need a verb because he may be delayed. And then to start a sentence, you wouldn't start with a verb. So the first one is maybe it's a good idea. Now let's review may and can in this specific context. Here's the quiz. You help me. There's only one way to complete this. Can you help me?
Can you help me?
Now, may is a modal. It's used for permission or possibility. Can is a modal, which is used for permission or ability. May is the polite form of can with request. That's what you're taught, and that's what I was taught as a child. As a child, I was taught to say, may I go to the bathroom? Because children have to request permission to do things. But of course you can say, can I go to the bathroom? But we're taught as children that may is more polite. But here's what you need to know. May is only used for polite requests with I, we subjects. So you cannot say, although I hear students say this, you cannot say, may you help me? May she help me? May they help me? But you can absolutely say, may I help Johnny with the art project? Now, I gave you an example that sounds like children in a classroom because, like I said, children are taught to use may for polite requests. As an adult, I do not use may for polite requests. I use can or could or other phrases for requests in professional situations or any situation. As an adult, I say, can I help out with the project? Or if I want to sound a little more formal, I would say, could I help out with the project? I would not say may as an adult. But thinking of children asking for permission, here's the quiz. I go outside and Sarah join me. Well, remember, may is used with the subjects I, we. May I go outside and can Sarah, she, join me? Let's review line and lane in the context of driving. As a new driver, I get nervous every time I change on the highway. I get nervous every time I change lanes on the highway.
Now you're gonna wanna slowly switch lanes.
Line is a noun, and in the context of driving, it's used to represent a row or a boundary. You can ask, am I in the lines? If you're parking. Now, notice I said, am I in the lines? We use this to mean, is my car in the lines? But we often just use ourselves as the subject. Or you might say they need to repaint the lines. Maybe it's the middle divider line or it's the side lines. Now, a lane is a division of a road for a single line of vehicles. So you might complain, this lane is moving so slowly. Or you might say, I can't change lanes, it's too busy. Or I need to get into the far right lane to exit. Or you can ask, is there a bike lane on this trail? So you can use it for bicycles or other purposes as well. Here's the quiz. I can't even tell if I'm in my because the are so faded. If I'm in my lane because the lines are so faded. Now let's review 30-day and 30 days. I just finished a soup diet. Which one? A 30-day soup diet.
30-day challenge.
When you have a number, dash, and then day, it could be something else, week, month, year. This functions as an adjective and it describes the noun. I just finished a 30 days soup diet is incorrect. You need the number plus day without the S, and it's always singular because adjectives don't have plural form. But you can absolutely say, I was on a soup diet for 30 days. So when you have number plus days, this is a noun phrase and it describes the duration. Now, noun phrases are singular or plural depending on the duration. I was on vacation for 1 day, no S. I was on vacation for 7 days with the S. And here the sentence structure is noun plus the duration. Or you can say, I was on a vacation, a 1-day vacation, a 7-day vacation. So here you need the article, the adjective 1 day, 7 day, and then the noun. So here's the quiz. Which one do you need? The warranty is valid for, but we have a special plan for only $10. Well, as soon as you see for, you know you need the duration for 30 days. But we have a plan, a 1-year plan. Now let's review real and really. That film was eye-opening. That film was really eye-opening.
That's really good.
So real is an adjective. It means genuine, actual, true. Really is an adverb, and it means very or actually. So it intensifies the verb or the adjective. Now, to be eye-opening, this is when new information or an event, and it causes you to think differently. Sometimes natives will say that film was real good. Technically, this is incorrect, but it's commonly used by natives in informal speech. So if you hear it, just know that is technically incorrect, and you should say that film was really good because you want the adverb to modify the adjective. You can say that was really surprising. Adverbs modify verbs or adjectives. Or that was a surprise, a real surprise. Adjectives modify nouns. Here's the quiz. It was nice of you to send me flowers. You are a friend. A friend, I know I need an adjective. A real friend. It was really nice of you. Now let's review me, myself, and I. Here's the quiz question. I set up for failure by going out late the night before my big presentation. I set myself up.
Pushing myself, wearing myself out.
But you can say, learning English sets me up for success because me is an object pronoun. In this case, the subject and object are not the same. The action happens to the object, not the subject. But if you say, I set myself up for success by learning English, myself is a reflexive pronoun. The subject and object are the same. The action happens to the subject. What do you think about this sentence? Me and Sarah will handle it. Is this correct or incorrect? It's incorrect. Me is an object pronoun, but the sentence requires a subject pronoun, I. But you must say Sarah and I will handle it. You cannot say I and Sarah will handle it. I always comes last with more than one subject. What about this one? Please send the file to John and I. What do you think? Is this correct or incorrect? It's incorrect. You need please send the file to John and me. The object receives the action. What do you think of this one? Myself and the team finished the project. Is this correct or incorrect? It's incorrect. You can say the team and I finished the project. The sentence requires a subject pronoun. How about this quiz? Mark and schedule the meeting, but please send the final agenda to only. And if no one else can finalize it, I'll do it. Well, hopefully this is easy for you. I'll do it myself. The subject and the object are the same. I'll do it myself. Send the final agenda to only me. I'm receiving the action. It's the object pronoun. And hopefully you knew it was Mark and I. That should be easy. It's the subject pronoun. You're doing great. Now you'll learn 33 advanced words you can use on your IELTS, in meetings, and even everyday life. Number 1, feasible. Feasible. This means possible to do easily or conveniently. Now, this is commonly used in writing when discussing the practicality, how practical is, proposals or solutions. For example, switching to renewable energy on a large scale may not be feasible, may not be easily or conveniently done in certain regions due to geographic limitations. Or for an everyday example, you could say, when you have a great teacher, getting a high IELTS score becomes feasible, becomes easy to do. Do you agree with that? If you do, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Number 2, proponent. Proponent. This is a person who advocates for, who supports, a theory, proposal, or course of action. Now, this is frequently seen in discussions about policy, debates, and research in both speaking and writing. For example, proponents of renewable energy. So this is people who support, who advocate for renewable energy, argue that it provides a sustainable alternative to fossil fuels.
I am a proponent of supporting any foundation, any type of group that is being proactive about this.
As you know, I've been a very strong and vocal proponent in the industry regarding both the need and the opportunity to rethink the models from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. I'm a huge proponent of all of us being interdependent versus independent.
Number 3, deploy. Deploy. This means to move into position for action, or it can mean to utilize something in a strategic manner. This is often used in writing to describe the implementation of resources, so the use of resources or strategies in various fields. For example, the government. This is commonly used with government. The government deployed emergency teams. So they put those teams in position or used them strategically. So how did they use them strategically? Perhaps to help tackle the aftermath of the hurricane.
Deploy algorithm.
And accidentally deploy when you were landing.
Deploy the fleet.
Number 4, notable. Notable. This means worthy of attention or notice. It could also simply mean remarkable. This is commonly found in writing to highlight significant differences or achievements. For example, one notable difference, so one significant difference, one important difference between rural and urban lifestyles is the level of access to healthcare facilities.
African soldiers proved to be notable jungle fighters.
And that's one of the more notable aspects of how we painted at this time anyway, certainly through the 1490s.
This well-preserved church is notable due to its high church tower that has been struck by lightning numerous times throughout its history.
Number 5, detrimental. Detrimental. This means causing harm or tending to cause harm. This is used in writing mainly to discuss negative impacts or consequences of policies and actions. You could say, while many aspects of technology are beneficial, Excessive screen time can have a detrimental effect, a negative effect on mental health. So this is a great word to have that contrast, which is commonly done in writing.
Can be detrimental. You're a detriment here.
My bitterness would be detrimental to my recovery.
Number 6, mitigate. Mitigate. This means to make less severe, serious, or painful. This is useful in writing and speaking to discuss ways to reduce negative impacts, especially in environmental contexts, which are common on the IELTS. For example, countries worldwide are investing in renewable energy as a means to mitigate, to reduce the effects of climate change. So to make those effects less serious, to mitigate.
Stop mitigating, everyone.
With mitigating circumstances.
While mitigating the health risks.
Number 7, discrepancy. Discrepancy. This is a lack of compatibility or similarity between two or more facts. This is commonly used in writing when analyzing data or discussing research findings. For example, a noticeable discrepancy exists between the reported income levels of urban and rural populations. So the discrepancy is that difference.
Why is there this discrepancy? It seems that we're doing a comparative evaluation.
But typically, I could find a discrepancy. And then I would say, well, I'm not saying it.
And any discrepancy should hopefully be external. So as I go...
Number 8, resilient. Notice that Z, resilient, resilient. If someone is resilient, it means they're able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. This is very useful in speaking and writing when discussing communities or individuals facing challenges, which is very common on the IELTS. For example, communities affected by natural disasters have proven to be remarkably resilient, rebuilding their lives and homes, so they're able to quickly recover from these negative situations.
It's time to embrace a resilient, strong culture of processing, not repressing.
We can push for a safe, kind, resilient, and human digital future.
People are leaving these climate resilient areas for economic reasons.
Number 9, alleviate. Alleviate. This is to make suffering or deficiency or a problem less severe. This is commonly used in writing and speaking to discuss solutions to societal issues like poverty or health. For example, local governments are implementing policies to alleviate, to reduce housing shortages in urban centers. Number 10, vulnerable. Do you know this one? Vulnerable. This means susceptible to physical or emotional harm. Again, this is often used in discussions about social issues, health, and even environmental concerns. You could say older populations are more vulnerable, so they're more susceptible to health issues, which means they get health issues easier and faster, vulnerable, especially during severe weather conditions.
He's vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Being vulnerable.
Number 11, paradigm. This one is very common. Paradigm. This is a typical example or pattern of something. You can think of it as a model. This is frequently found in writing to discuss shifts in thinking or approaches. You could say the adoption of digital technology in classrooms represents a significant paradigm shift. So a shift in thinking in education.
Is that it's a paradigm that's trying to hold us back.
So it's kind of a new paradigm that actually seems to unlock things not only in fundamental physics, but also in the foundations of mathematics and computer science, and possibly in areas like biology and economics as well.
I believe it's time to reject that old paradigm and realize that our fates are linked.
Number 12, viable. Viable. This means capable of working successfully It can also mean feasible. So it's very important to learn alternatives, synonyms, because you'll commonly see them. And if you want to discuss these same issues, you can use an alternative word, a synonym. So now we have viable. This is used in discussions about sustainability and practical solutions. For example, solar power, you could say, is becoming a viable alternative to traditional energy sources in many sunny regions, at least. Number 13, benign. Notice that silent G, benign, benign. This means having no significant harm or adverse effect, negative effect. This is commonly used in discussions about impacts and effects to talk about something not having an effect. For example, despite initial fears, the new construction projects are expected to have a benign effect on local wildlife. So it means the new construction projects don't have an effect. They don't have a significant effect. They have a benign effect.
It's benign.
Were they benign?
Fine and benign.
Number 14, conducive. Conducive. This means making a certain situation or outcome likely or possible. This is common in discussions about environments that encourage certain behaviors or outcomes. For example, students suggest that a clutter-free space, a space free of clutter, free of things, distracting things, is conducive to better concentration and learning. So it helps you achieve that outcome.
It's not conducive to health.
Atmosphere wasn't conducive, right?
Isn't conducive to rhyming well.
Number 15, incentive. Incentive. Do you know this one? This is a thing that motivates or encourages someone to do something. This is used in discussions about economics, business, and public policy. You hear this frequently. For example, to reduce emissions, the government introduced financial incentives for companies investing in clean energy. So those companies will get something in return, an incentive, if they invest in clean energy. Number 16, compile. Compile. This means to produce by assembling information and other sources. This is often used in academic writing and research discussions. For example, the researchers compiled, so gathered together, compiled data from numerous sources to ensure a comprehensive analysis.
Compiled them in our data processors.
And combined it with compilation.
Who compiled this map?
17, contradictory. Contradictory. This means mutually opposed or inconsistent. This is used in writing when discussing conflicting ideas or conflicting data. For example, the study presents contradictory findings, with one portion indicating benefits and another highlighting potential risks. So they're opposed to each other. Risks and benefits and risks, they're opposed, so it's contradictory.
Saying that out loud almost sounds contradictory. Upside and grief.
And honestly, our physics is telling us a lot of contradictory things.
They allow us to interpret its complex and contradictory signals.
Number 18, foster. Foster. This is to encourage or promote the development of something, and usually something good. And this is commonly used in discussions about education and social policies. Educational institutions should foster creativity, encourage creativity because it is positive, and critical thinking in their students. Number 19, retention. Retention. This is the continued possession, use, or control of something. This is used in writing when discussing education and employment practices, very common in employment. For example, employee retention, the ability to retain, keep employees. employee retention remains a priority, as high turnover, employees leaving, as high turnover can disrupt team dynamics. Number 20, depict. Depict. This is to represent by a drawing, painting, or other art form. This is common in discussions about art and literature, which is common in writing tasks. For example, art from this period typically depicts scenes. So in that art, you see this scene represented. So depicts scenes of everyday life, showcasing rural traditions.
Inside the church, the paintings depict scenes from the Old and New Testaments and effigies of patron saints.
Would depict it as an illustration of the flexibility and wisdom of common law adjudication.
The paintings depict the image of a chair in various stages of completion or dissolution.
21, to steer clear of. So notice here we have a phrase, to steer clear of something. This means to avoid someone or something. This is used in speaking, and you can use it to give advice or recommendations, which is very common on IELTS. For example, health professionals often advise patients to steer clear of, to avoid processed foods to maintain overall well-being. 22, solely. Solely. This means not involving anyone or anything else. It can also be a replacement to only. This is useful in writing to clarify specific points or responsibilities. For example, the success of the project does not solely depend on funding. So it does not only depend on funding, but also on effective management. So this is a nice complex sentence, and you can replace only with solely. 23, abundant. Abundant. This means existing or available in large quantities. It also means plentiful. This is commonly used in discussions about resources and again, environments. The country is known for its abundant natural resources, particularly oil and timber.
Public space must be as free and abundant as the air we breathe.
Fishing. Near the village, seals and caribou were abundant.
To speak of. It does have abundant land and abundant sun and wind. We can't all duplicate that.
24, sustainability. Sustainability. This is the ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level. This frequently appears in discussions about environmental issues and development. Investing in renewable resources is critical for the sustainability of our environment. You will absolutely hear this word and you should use it as well.
Biodiversity can contribute to the sustainability of a community.
And I think the main way I think you should look at it is about sustainability.
Sustainability, it's become something that a lot of people in the world are striving for because we recognize what's going on with the world these days.
25, assess. Assess. This means to evaluate or estimate the nature, ability, or quality of something. This is common in writing when discussing evaluations in education and business. For example, teachers assess students' understanding through regular tests and assignments.
It assesses us.
Assess your options. Interesting assessment.
26, target. Target. This is an objective or result toward which efforts are directed. So you direct your efforts toward a target. This is commonly used in writing, especially in essays discussing your goals and objectives. You could say the initiative targets a 25% reduction in carbon emissions within 5 years. So notice here it's a verb. The initiative targets, to target. This is also a noun, a target. The target is a 25% reduction. 27, elicit. Elicit. This is to get a response, answer, or fact from someone, often through questioning or discussion. This is commonly used in writing when discussing studies, research, or data. For example, the questions were designed to elicit authentic responses, so to get real, honest responses from participants. Number 28, decipher. Decipher. This means to interpret or to make sense of something that is difficult to understand. A synonym is to decode, to decipher, to decode. This is commonly used in writing when discussing the meaning of someone or something. For example, scholars spent decades attempting to decipher the ancient script, so attempting to understand the meaning of the ancient script.
Professor Om wants to decipher which data can lead to discriminatory actions or privacy invasions, and to set safeguards for a better protection of human subjects in data science.
Students with hearing loss rely more heavily on visual cues to decipher what is being said.
And now we have the capacity to decipher life in a way we never did before.
29, fluctuate. Fluctuate. This means to change or vary irregularly, so not by following a pattern, and often in amount or level. This is commonly used when discussing the results or current state of something. For example, the stock market fluctuates. It's up, it's down, and it's not a regular pattern. It's irregular. The stock market fluctuates dramatically in response to world events.
Any weight fluctuations?
His weight fluctuates.
Any weight fluctuations?
Number 30, outline. Outline. This is to give a summary of something and is often used in writing to present main ideas or structures clearly. For example, the professor outlined the main points of the lecture at the beginning.
Just the outline.
Anything you outline with this,
I just outlined for you.
31, promote. Promote. This means to support or actively encourage. This is frequent in discussions about public health, education, and social initiatives. For example, government campaigns often promote healthier lifestyles to reduce healthcare costs. 32, habitat. Habitat. This is the natural environment in which an organism lives. This is commonly used in discussions about ecology and conservation. For example, protecting forests is essential to preserving the habitats, the homes of numerous species. 33, augment. Augment. This is to make something larger, greater, or more intense. This is common in speaking and writing to discuss increases or improvements in systems, infrastructures, or even skills. For example, the government allocated additional funds to augment public health services, so to help improve the size or state of these public health services in response to rising demands. Now you have 33 new words in your vocabulary, and I'm sure when you review the free lesson PDF, remember you can find the link in the description, you'll learn many, many other words in the example sentences as well. Do you want me to keep making these lessons, teaching you more IELTS words? If you do, put put more in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And you can keep expanding your vocabulary with this lesson. Make sure you watch it now.